language. We might as well fucking read this one. We'll read this one, but we're going to go back through them all. But we'll read this one. Speak to me in language I would love to understand. Pull a bullet. Is this thing on? Is this thing on, though? Is this thing on? Right. Speak to me in language I would love to understand. Put a bullet in your mouth and put a gun into your hand, and then you spit that bullet out while you pretend to be a man. I'd love to understand you, boy, to love and understand. Speak to me in language I would love to understand. Put a bullet in your mouth and put a gun into your hand, and then you spit that bullet out while you pretend to be a man. I would love to understand you, boy, to love and understand. That's what, when you write shit, you always just have words running around in your head. That's on. Sometimes you write them down, and sometimes they just keep running around in your head for fucking years. The same words until you write them down. Those words running around in your head and where they come from. Wake me in my own bed after full rest to make love before eating a large breakfast of meats and fat, smoking deep in contemplation within gardens with my second cup of coffee. Just fucking rambling. Constant internal dialogues. Amusing yourself. What are you going to do? You're fucking stuck with yourself. You might as well amuse yourself. You're going to hate yourself. You're going to ignore yourself. And listen to yourself. Keep yourself company. Praise yourself. Validate yourself. Love yourself. And then share yourself with another, right? This is a cool shirt. Check this shirt out. What? Shaz always has the coolest shirts. Oh. Let's see if we got another crack. You know what? I should stand up a little bit. I sat for a whole fucking hour. I forget. I start talking. Oh, whew. I start talking and I forget that, like, that's going to stiffen my back. Sitting 5 hours talking is going to stiffen my back, so I should. I'm like, I just start the next video because I get into fucking the talking. Okay, this is hard. This is the hard part. The bending over is the hardest part. Bending over is the hardest part. You know, I'm just going to talk like this. I'm going to lean over the chair, support my weight, bend into the stretch while I talk. So, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do the beginning of the video like this. We're going to do another 5-10 minute thing of just stretching while we talk. What was I talking about? I was talking about 172 Thompson. So that's because I'm talking myself into these types of moods because I'm getting the emotion of what I was. That's who I was at 172 Thompson. All of this is who I am. I'm all of these aspects put together. You take Shaz, you turn the gem, and the light refracts. But each color you're seeing in the gem isn't taken away from the next color. They're just all bouncing off different aspects of the same gem. They don't all blend together. They're just different ways that the light is fracturing through the gem. So my assholery, my toughness, my compassion, this and that, they're not just going to blend together into this bland person. I don't subscribe to that theory of human nature. I'm going to be as tough as I can be, as compassionate as I can be, as loving as I can be, as much of an asshole as I need to be. So that's what I've always thought. I had these different gears. I felt that in Puerto Rico. They have these horses, the Paso Fino horses, and they have different steps. And they're called Paso Fino horses because they do a certain type of gait. It's called the Paso Fino gait. They're smaller horses, and since it's a smaller island, Vieques, they're well adapted to that type of terrain. So you see the kids with the horses running them down the street, and then they're putting them through the steps. Just like if you had people with a car and they're doing like the hydraulics and stuff, or they're like bumping their systems. Well, taking your horse down the main drag of town and putting him through the different steps, and you see the horse go down the street doing one gait and then another gait. He comes down the street 4 times, each with a different gait. That's kind of like peacocking, showing off. So I just feel like in my life, just seeing that, seeing other stuff, there's a time to be hard, a time to be soft, a time to be... So you just got to know what gear to use, but when I'm using a gear, I want to really be in that gear. Like when it's time to shut shit down, you can't show weakness at certain moments. It's time to, no, we're doing this and this is what we're doing. It's like when that guy wants to get down in the bar, I look him in the eyes and I'm like, nah, if we're going to do that, that's what we're going to do. You're not going to claim a gear I don't know. Once you live enough life, you're like, all right, so I've been in a couple different situations. And the same thing with business. You're trying to make the money, but if the person's trying to do the takeaway where they're like, oh, I'm trying to get a concession from you or else you're not going to do business, I've already walked away from business before, so that doesn't fear me, or that doesn't instill fear in me. It doesn't scare me. You're like, all right, you learn to be the first one out of the room. If you learn to not get run by women, by clients, by other men, and that's just the way I've been trying to live, trying to learn how to do these different engagements. The same thing with chess. There's different things you're trying to accomplish in the beginning, middle, and end game. So you study openings, you study positions, middle positions, and then in end game, it's a lot about pawn maneuvering and little. I watched this one Magnus Carlsen game, and he put his king in a position where the opponent thought that they could eventually get his king. They didn't realize how hard it would be to get the king out of this pawn position that he hid his king in. But Magnus knew he just made it a little bit harder than the guy thought it would be to get him. I'd have to look at the specific game. And that's what bought him the time in order to do what he needed to do. So all these little, but that's because he really studied that end position. So, and that's a lot like strategic theory is situational awareness. When you're familiar with a situation and the patterns of that situation, you're going to be more calm and relaxed. And that's why I only play 5-minute games, because you need quick decision-making skills. Life, you don't have all the time in the world. You have to quickly size up a decision, decide your options, and then do the best you can. And then you roll from there. And that's what real estate, month after month, teaching me stuff like that. It's like I got I start to qualify, so I start to only what I do is I created a inquiry form. I'll go look at my inquiry form right now. I'll go do that. Ooh, that feels good. Yeah, this is like, there we go. Just doing that for a minute. How long was that? We'll do that. We'll do that in a half hour too. That was really good. I put some blood into it. There we go. That was good, Shaz. That was good. Because it feels good. It's to the point now where I could sit for a while, but it's gonna, if I do it too long, it's gonna stiffen up. So I'm trying to get better. If I just leave it and don't shoot shit like that, I'm not gonna get back in the gym fast enough. We're trying to do an aggressive recovery here. So there's still pain there. Like right now, there's still pain, and if I stiffen up, there's a lot of pain. But we're gonna do an aggressive recovery. I couldn't even move. The first day I was fucking out. Oh, I only did 3 hours that day too, and it was fucking painful the whole time. You know what? I can plug in that fucking heat thing while I do these. I don't want to do that. I want to abuse the heat. The heat's nice. I wonder if that's bad. Anyways, I'll look it up. Let me talk about that NYU girl I've been talking about. So I'm like, all right, time to apply my system theory to women. The Simba system for women. Sales, inventory, branding. What's it? Sales, inventory, marketing, branding, analytics. Well, sales, that's my philosophy of love instead of sales, that you don't have to be a predator. You can have the win-win love scenario in which she also likes you and you approach each other on equal footing. Inventory. Who are the... Well, that's what's interesting, because when you're a broker, inventory was... You're brokering clients and apartments, but you have to really know the apartments. But it's like the apartments, the clients want the apartments and they're renting those from the landlord. So that's what a broker is. It's dealing with two markets, a market of clients and a market of inventory. And so brokers are really interesting. Yeah, brokering isn't just sales. Brokering is sales, but between two different markets. And so if I was just like selling cars, I'm not brokering. If you're just selling anything, you're just sales. But when you're brokering, you have to understand markets, because I have to understand landlords and their appetites for risks. And you have to add a value in this transaction. When it's just sales, and that's the other difference, is since I'm brokering is sales between markets, this is something I'm just thinking of right now, but I always thought that it was really interesting. I just never try to qualify it or articulate it. That's some of the shit I say is the first time I'm saying it. But brokering is sales between markets. When you're selling a product, I create that product, or I'm wholesaling, or I'm retailing. So sometimes I'm not the creator, but the quality of product I have control over, deciding what wholesaler I'm buying from in order to retail it, or even creating it myself, and I'm selling it myself, and I have a vertical. I'm doing from the production all the way to the sale. But when you're brokering, I don't have control over the apartments. The landlords do. I just have control over access over which one. So I guess, is it like, if it's not like wholesaling, I don't have the same liability. I'm connecting parties, and then I'm out. And I give those people a guarantee. That's what I did in the rentals too. I said, if you ever need me for the term of your lease, I could help you sublet it, because I'll make a fee off of that anyways. Why not? Or I'll just help you get out if you need any advice. I'm not a lawyer. I can't advise you, but I'll point you in the right direction for free legal help. And I will give you the access to my repertoire of experience. After a couple of years, I started just give them a couple examples. Look, I've seen this, this, and this. So like if you're dealing with something, I might have seen it before. I could at least give you advice on how I dealt with it. You always have to do that caveat. I'm not a lawyer. I cannot legally advise you. But I would send them to like free legal aid and shit like that. New York has really good resources for tenants. And that's part of my brand. Part of my brand is that I'm a tenant's, a renter's agent, like a buyer's agent in sales. So just learning these different, I'm rounding out a philosophy of how to conduct business and make money in an ethical way, adding value, finding clients who want my service. I was meeting people consistently, and I still do in other industries, who haven't figured that out. That you can sell ethically, and you can. This guy in Mexico who I was going to, he wanted to get in business with me, but I guess I showed him too much immaturity. So he didn't really tell me no. He just stopped talking to me. But he gave me a free phone. He thought enough of me to have a meeting, but then I guess I was just too bumblefuck at that time of my life. But he was a professor of sales, and he was really into it. And I was starting to notice that I'm starting to exhibit characteristics that he showed me in Mexico, but not on purpose. This is just, I'm starting to internalize that. And then I read a book, Nation of Salesmen, which I'll look up. That kind of helped me internalize that I'm not an asshole too. Because that's what in Occupy Wall Street, I had my insecurity about money. That, you know what, and that's what a lot of those kids do. They're fucking, some of them are just insecure because it's daddy's money. Like the fucking, what's his name? The Ben and Jerry's kid. He's fucking railing against fucking society, which is great. We all were. But like, he needed to rail against his insecurities too and get his feet under him. I really believe that. Like, I had that blind spot. It's like I never really worked hard in my life or had money in my pocket. Let me do that. And then I was editing out now. I don't feel as weird about money, and I don't feel as like I don't have as much animosity towards people who have money either. A lot of that was projection, and a lot of that was not understanding that you can be ethical in business. I understood that some in my parents' agency, so I wasn't completely fuck capitalism, fuck everything. There are problems with our society with corruption and with concentration of power because these aren't markets. An oligopoly and with hegemons in each industry, you don't have efficient markets functioning. But I'm proving that in a way by being a little guy in an efficiently functioning market, which is New York real estate. Not so much in sales, maybe not even in rentals, because you do have some behemoth landlords. But as far as brokers go, you can have a broker from Bond, Douglas Elliman, fucking Real New York. What's a top 5 firm? Corcoran, City Habitats. We're all going after the same business. So as far as getting landlords and relationships and the real money and the big money, the sales and the $1 million listings, the market starts getting smaller, and you start getting the same problem you have in any other industry. You started to get it in real estate in our sales affiliates, in our rental affiliates, the marketing affiliates is what it is. StreetEasy was bought by Trulia Group, who also bought Naked Apartments. I'm starting to realize, since I'm looking at the macro picture of my rental business, I'm starting to realize I'm becoming more and more dependent on the Walmart of fucking the big box store of marketing, and that's freaking me out. Luckily I have RentHop, and that's why I'm putting money in RentHop, because they're still independent. And I'm like, I don't like the fact that like this one company has just bought 3 of my marketing affiliates. And that's the same thing with Uber, driving out fucking other business, the cabbies and stuff. When you realize like a big mover comes into your market, and that's why we're supposed to, well, historically in America, we've seen what happens when you have this before. It decreases competition, so you're supposed to bust up the trust. Once the trust comes into an industry and turns into a market, it affects the market in such a way that it can manipulate free competition, then that doesn't help anyone. So I'm living, instead of reading a fucking economics book, I'm living it by being a small guy who's able to grow his business in a freely moving market. But I'm realizing the rental market's not being affected that way, because it would be hard to affect that rental market that way. There's too many clients and too many brokers. There's 30,000 brokers and as many or more clients. And then there's like 10,000 apartments every month, and there's just all this movement. So even if the brokerages are all huge, I competed against the top 10 firms all the time, even when I opened up my own business, and I did well. So you could get into these markets, like I'm sure stocks is the same way. If I'm a really good stock picker, I could get in the stock market and compete with the best guys. Maybe it's all computerized. I'd have to have like good algorithms and shit. But the way that fucking the market is closing and becoming less competitive is in the marketing. I was noticing that we all have to go through the internet, and fucking these titans are coming into the fucking market, grabbing up most of the real estate marketing. We have good competition, I guess. Apartments.com, which is really a CoStar company. That's why when I looked up when you look up West Village Studio, Apartments.com's up there. They weren't up there 2 years ago. I never advertised on them before. So within this last year, if I stayed in real estate, I probably would have started having to advertise on Apartments.com. And then there's another thing that there's never truth in advertising. There's people are like, yeah, that's just a myth. I didn't come into business with illusions, especially not after Occupy Wall Street. I came into it to win. So I would advertise. I learned this lesson at Bond, New York. There's this $25,000 fucking apartment. I first got in, I was like, shit, that'd be over a $10,000 commission, because they're taking half my money over there. But I'm just like, wow. So I go and take pictures. I throw it up. I put up for 20,000, and fucking Douglas Wagner was like, someone told him that I did that or some shit. But like they watched the company. Well, I was there. I can't speak on the company now. But like that's why it looked professional. That's why I fucking switched from Rapid Realty over there. Nothing against the guy who started Rapid Realty. I met some girl in my real estate licensing class who said that she was fucking him or some shit. Like, he's a cool dude. Fucking, he has good taste in women. She had a fat ass. Seems like a nice guy. But fucking, but yeah, it wasn't the company I wanted to learn the business from. But, he was like, what made you think it would be okay to advertise this apartment for $5,000 less than what the price is? I was like, I figured drive more exposure, and we could get it down to there. And then he gave me a little lesson in setting the price. That no, when you set the price, and there's fucking liability and this and that, and you can't just fucking unilaterally be one. First of all, it's not my listing, but I'm allowed to advertise that some of these things internally. The company will be like, anyone can put this up. We're trying to move it so anyone can throw it on their ads. And then some of them are a lot more restrictive. Only that's another thing when I'm marketing. I have to know that in my industry. Some apartments I can advertise, some I can't. In New York, that's what the clients don't understand. They're like, do you have all the apartments? I tell them, I can rent you any apartment out here, but just some of them I can advertise, some of them I can't, because I have contracts with other people. I can still go to those people, bring you, and it's not even going to be any more money for you. Maybe you can negotiate a better deal one-on-one, but when I bring you, what they're supposed to do is just give me half the fucking commission. That's how we account for it. That's why they open it to the whole market, and then now they only have to babysit it, and they take care of the apartment, and then other brokers bring them clients. If they just try to rent it themselves, they're only one agent, no matter how big their company is. But you open it up, you co-broke. The best agents, not just the best agents, everyone co-brokes. The ones who don't co-broke, either the market's really tight, so you can know you're going to rent it, or you're doing a disservice to your landlord, because you're supposed to have a fiduciary responsibility to do the best thing for your landlord, get them money. So that means you have to give it exposure. Otherwise, you're just keeping it to your chest. Most people don't rent their own apartments. Most stuff happens on a co-broke basis because as brokers, we're all cross-pollinating. We're connecting the market together. The swarm of brokers is moving and connecting market information together. And then clients would wonder, they would ask, so anyways, to wrap up that story. So I was like, all right, lesson learned. He was like, don't ever unilaterally change the price on someone else's listing. That's not your listing. You don't even fucking, he had a really good way of fucking, since he was so professional, just shutting you down if you're doing something stupid. Where you're just like, okay, thank you. My name is Douglas. I learned your name. It has 2 syllables. I wish you would learn mine. And I called him Doug. Should have called him Dougie, but no. I only worked there for a couple months. I went back. I did another deal there 3 years later, and he saw me in the hallway. He was like, hey, how are you doing? He shook my hand. It's just little stuff. It doesn't mean much, I'm sure, to him, but to me, it means a lot, because certain people you respect, and then energy and attention. It's not, I don't need a fucking award. I don't need people to kiss my ass. But I choose to acknowledge some people, and then some people I don't even remember their name or their fucking face, honestly. So the people, when you're busy in New York,
and other people are busy. So the ones like you pay attention to certain types of people, and you make an impression on certain types of people, and then they make an impression on you. I remember the dude I sat down with who fucking wanted to develop hotels in the city because I didn't like his character. I was just like, I'm not gonna do business with this dude. I checked out of the meeting as soon as he did. What I took from there was how much of a dumbass I sounded like sitting down with the guy who builds hotels, and I had no idea. But he was asking me about like how many keys, how many this or that for the hotel industry. I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. I was just trying to. That's what it was, the lesson in going to a high end meeting unprepared. But I didn't kind of. I smelt it off the girl. The girl was like a secretary, but she was cute or something. The girl who set up the meeting. It was like, oh, this is one of those New York things. This is a pretty girl who works for him, but fucking he gave her the job for something. She didn't have her head on right. She was kind of like clueless or ditzy or something. I don't know. She because I rented the apartment. I don't know. I'm so judgmental on people. Her the apartment. I'm like, how is she working for this company? What is the? Oh, it's one of those things. My dad would say, oh, she's selling with her skirt. It's just some of these people fucking. Is that judgmental? Maybe, but it happens. You meet people who don't seem qualified for the position they are in. I rented a couple mistress apartments. People who they got a guarantor. It's not related to them, but it's a dude with money. And this girl has no skill sets, and she has no fucking. I got to figure out. I'm like, all right, so what are we dealing with? That's why you learn to have those conversations on the front end. No salary employment, but we can show money in the bank. Okay, we could do this. Any credit? No, bad credit too. So what do you do for a living? You're going to school. So the guarantor is not related to you. What's the relationship to you? We're not going to discuss it. All right. So I advise we just put some money in your bank. That's all. Let's not even use a guarantor. Let's not have to explain that relationship. I had a landlord even tell me, he told me straight up, he's like, we've had a bad experience with this type of situation before. I was like, what type of situation? He was like, well, we had a guy rent an apartment for a girl, and then things didn't work out. He didn't want to pay the rent. So like he was trying to like say that my client was a mistress. And I was like, but it wasn't this particular situation. The guy was actually dating this girl, and he was going to move in with her. He was way older than her, but it was a step above a mistress. They thought that the guy was married, and this was his girl on the side because there's two names on the bank account, him and a female name. And I was like, no, that's the guy's mom. I was like, he's not married. This isn't a mistress thing. They're like, oh, they're so relieved, the landlord. They're like, oh, because that's what landlords are like. You learn how skittish they are, and you learn that like they're assholes for a reason. Like my landlord, she's an asshole with me, but we were pushing each other's energy. I didn't like how she came at me, and I'd been in the business enough that I'm not gonna fucking just because they're a landlord. I had no more superstitions about people with money, people with power. You can have a $10 million business. Doesn't give you the right to do illegal paperwork with me. You didn't do shit the right way. You're learning your lesson. Shaz is the guy who tries to teach people lessons, apparently. But they're like, oh, I was like, no, it looks funny because there's a huge age difference. He was like in his 50s. She was like 20. I was like, it looks funny, but they're actually dating. They're not, there's no like hidden, like he's not married, sneaking around. So like, it looks funny, but this is a real relationship for what it is. And then he came to the lease signing, and they were like lovey-dovey on each other. So like, you could be judgmental, but the landlord wasn't going to judge his personal life. He just didn't want this guy to rent an apartment to someone when he was married out of town with someone else. That's what he was worried about. I was like, no, that's his mom. That was an interesting situation. That was just funny because they were trying to tell me we're not really supposed to talk about stuff like that. Like you're not supposed to get too much into the client's personal life. Credit this and that. There's these rules, like be neutral. We're not supposed to talk about protected classes, race, sex, stuff like that. So you have to walk those lines while also using your judgment. So that's what the other broker was trying to tell me. He knows because the landlord, if you don't have these conversations, landlords can just reject without telling you. So like we have to be legal and not discriminate. And there's very good reasons for that because discrimination happened in real estate to support racism in the industry. Redlining, blockbusting, not allowing certain ethnicities to live in certain areas, scaring certain ethnicities out of certain areas. White flight was promoted through the real estate industry. Black people are moving to your neighborhood, and they're just trying to get these people to sell so they can flip their houses to the black people now. Get them to sell at the discount. Your prices are going down. Fucking, what's his name? Fucking, Joe Washington down the street just moved in, and once one comes, they all come. So there's these rules where you have to be very careful. It's probably for the best, but the business guys, since they're all mostly douchebag Republican dudes, not that all Republicans are douchebags, but these guys are all like, oh, the PC people, blah blah blah. So they all get super fucking weird about it, where they're all superstitious about the protected classes. I was never like that. I never feared PC culture and shit. I always believe in the rational stance. Like, yeah, don't try not to be racist and try not to. Yeah, just rational. That's what being a business owner. That's what's cool about being in these industries. Is I survived and I did it, but I did it my way. So like I understand why this guy was tiptoeing around it, because it's like, are we stepping into territory where we really shouldn't be talking about the clients like this? But he also knows that the landlord can just say no, and that's what it all comes down to. The landlord doesn't have to justify his decision, so he can be racist just without saying being racist. So it's like landlords don't like lawyers in my experience. They don't like certain type of industries. Can they discriminate that way? Can they discriminate against single women? They can't articulate that's why they're discriminating, but they could just not accept applications and just say, well, so when the broker knows that's the landlord's profile, they give you a heads up without necessarily what we're going to change human behavior, without us making ourselves liable. Just like, you know what, he has a certain profile of what he's looking for, blah blah blah. But so yeah, so this broker was letting me know this landlord, I don't even know if is a mistress a protected class. Can you sue for being discriminated against because you're someone's fucking mistress? Because that shit goes on all the time in New York. That was in the New York Times. They did a profile on a fucking guy who had a mistress, like in their sex column. New York sex, maybe any fucking city, because that's our culture of society. But I haven't lived in most metropolitan cities, but I lived in New York. At the top, money and sex and power are all interrelated. Shaw would go to clubs, fucking $3,500, $5,000 table service. She wouldn't pay for that shit, but she was pretty enough to go to the clubs and to get invited to the tables and do the shit. I was like, well, why don't I go out with you to these places? She's like, you couldn't get in. I'm sorry, you couldn't. That's not. So she'd go out with her friend. But yeah, that's poor Shaz. I mean, that's what also I realized when I was poor Shaz. It's like I could swing the pretty girl who the rich guys are blowing the money on. So that's a nice feeling, to feel like you could be like, that's like the pool boy. It's like fucking, you could get the mansion and you can get the house, but I'll clean your pool and I'll fuck your wife. That's dangerous though. You trip some fucking. I try not to get into relationships with other people's. You just trip red lines. The righteous male energy is a fucking atomic nuclear thing to fucking detonate. Fucking, that's what bugs me so much about terrorism. People never talk about these people's motives. It's like America's everywhere fucking up everything. We need to de-escalate the world. Same thing I would do in Occupy Wall Street. Walk around finding these time bombs and defuse them. But all our movies show us is you just need someone with a bigger gun, a bigger bomb. Captain America doesn't go around talking to people. He punches people. Superhero movies, you punch. Is that what we're teaching people? You punch justice? You punch evil in the face? There's no such thing as fucking evil. There's human beings and inputs and reasons and cycles of violence. We're keeping people emotionally fucking stunted through our shitty ass cartoons. Anyways, that's not how the real world works. In the real world, predators face off with a lot of posturing, but usually don't do anything because fighting is too costly. The toughest guy in my high school got stabbed in a fight. He wasn't a tough. He was the toughest guy. He was an older brother of these kids who were on the wrestling team, and he was doing MMA back when MMA wasn't cool. And he was just a superhero to us. He would come in, wrestle with us, fight with us. I don't think I talked about that story. And fucking his brothers were getting fucked with at a gas station, and he came up and fought. He beat up one of the guys, and the other guy ran off. He beat up that guy too. That's how tough he was. He was just like a super soldiers. Some of these guys are just like, they're the alpha for the fucking 100-mile radius. This guy was like, he was going up to Canada to fight. MMA was so small that like you had to go a long distance for your fights and shit. And he chases this guy down, and the guy turns around, stabs him in the heart. He dies. He bleeds out right there. That was the toughest guy I knew growing up. Probably one of the toughest guys I've ever known in my life. He was going into the Air Force. If he went into the Air Force and actually made it, he would have probably gone into Special Forces. Like, out of your population of however many people, there'll be a couple lawyers, a couple doctors, a couple Special Forces, this and that. So out of the population of people in our town and people we grew up with, we had everything. And if you have a big enough circle, or if you know enough people, you probably know people who did this and that. Randall Winston going the political route. I've known my PhDs and my master degrees, my military guys. That kid was going to do something. And he just fucking, he was just, his family's everything. And he just got pissed off these guys were fucking with his brothers, and he was going to show him a lesson. And he just, I guess from an early age that happened, and that kind of like curbed my temper too. It was just like, that was the baddest dude I knew. Like, he could do over 100 push-ups. He said that when he did the Air Force test, they were doing like PT and shit. He just kept going. He did, like, they said it was the most they ever saw. He would come in and he'd just have us fight him. He'd be like not even drill wrestling with us. He would just be like, just try to hit me, try to get me. And he could just keep his distance, keep you at bay. He was like the most physically, he was just a very beautiful girlfriend, fucking great person. He was just like, when you're young in high school and you see this adult where you're like, wow, that's a man, that's a cool dude. Cool car, cool girlfriend, can beat anyone up. Anyone. Fucking Superman. Stabbed in the heart. That's all it takes. That's what I saw in the Bronx in that video. That was a badass fucking junkyard dog. That was a bulldog, that old guy, that big guy who got stabbed in the neck. That fucking kid pulled out a knife and he didn't even flinch. He put his hand down and caught him by the wrist. Whatever he was telling that kid, he was really telling him. And he was like, this is my block, and you fucking bumped into me. And that kid just fucking freed his hand, stabbed him in the neck. You can't be cocky in life. Anyone can get touched, is what they say. You gotta fucking... That's not what the movies teach us. The movies teach us that if you're big enough and bad enough, or this and that, it's like, that's not how life works. You gotta fucking... The margin of error is very small in real life. We got one life. It's not worth it. It's never worth it. Fucking MMA guys don't run around doing street fights. They get into MMA, probably, like, there's this one guy, the guy that Tyrone Woodley just beat. He said that, British guy, he said he used to do bar fights until he got stabbed. And he ended up in the hospital. He was like, I should probably get into MMA or something, because I'm going to die doing this. But he loved fighting. Darren Till. He seems to love fighting. Some people like fighting. Fighting's fun. It's a good test of your spirit and your will and this and that. But in the real world, that suicidal behavior, I've learned to recognize it and avoid it. As do most old heads. You don't get to be an old head by inviting danger. But that's why there's a peace to the world, and there's a peace to systems. Because everyone just wants to be able to fucking do their own thing. Just chill out, have their family, have their life. People don't want to get heated. It's too exhausting. Even the fucking meanest, baddest people, there's just fucking, you can't keep your head in that mind state. It's exhausting. We just want to chill. The whole world just wants to chill. And we have forces that are trying to get us aggravated just to take advantage of us, keep us fighting against each other, keep us off of them counting money that they've stolen from the commons. $6 trillion for the Iraq War. You know what the interest is on that, Shaz? $8 trillion. So who played the long con there? $6 trillion some of that went to contractors, a lot of that was embezzled, a lot of that was stolen, this and that. The bankers made $8 trillion though. $8 trillion is off the interest from borrowing that money. How fucking simple is it? It's more complicated math than just that, but those are the numbers. $6 trillion, $8 trillion, $14 trillion unnecessarily spent. And George Bush is out here fucking getting medals. Oh, they found out he just sponsored some kid in Latin America or some shit. They put that on Reddit. Fucking George Bush just sponsored some kid, and Obama just gave someone toys in a fucking hospital. This fucking, you can't help but laugh at that shit. Fucking worthless men that we honor. Worthless human beings. Pieces of shit, right? How are you going to defend that? What are these people's, what's going to be their legacy? Are their lies going to hold? Are they going to actually fucking keep the con on forever? How do you do that? That's exhausting. It's exhausting to be them. Fucking, that's what it is. Character is your own reward and punishment. It's exhausting to be George Bush, fucking with his shitty ass watercolors. Barack Obama, walking his daughter into danger, letting her intern at Harvey Weinstein's company because he's so blind to character. Fucking, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna raise other people. These are grown ass men. I'm not gonna be their father. Teach them how to be fucking normal human beings. I'm just going to mitigate the fucking chaos and violence that they're unleashing on the world through their lack of character. That's what I'm trying to learn how to do. Don't take it personally. Don't get mad at the people personally. Just get on to the work that we have to do in order to take care of ourselves and make a better world. But if they keep up with the bullshit, then there has to be a response. You have to have justice. You have to have people going to jail for crimes. So that war was a criminally enacted war. So George Bush Jr. does have to be tried for that, right? How can we go after Trump and not go after George Bush Jr.? There's a logic in that. Where's the justice in that? Where's the civility? Where's the society? What stories are we telling ourselves? What stories are we living? Are we living the truth? Or are we just living the lies that support power? Does someone have a vested interest in us living lies? What is true? What is identity? What is narrative? What is the time? 36. I thought it was 50. I was worried. You're so blind, Shaz. This would be a nice time to smoke a joint. I'm going to get some weed. I'm going to finish this up. 8 hours. 5 hours today, and then I'm reading 1 book, 2 books. I might read 2 books. I said I was going to read 1 book. I might read 2 books before the end of the year. The Art of Loving and The Art of War. Because I looked up that anecdote about the Greeks and the Persians and identity, and that's tying into a lot of what I'm talking about. And I thought, I read it before, but I was like, maybe I should read The Art of War again. Just now with a different mind state. As I get more into my own head and do these videos and remember more and unify my own story more, my mind's slowing down. That's how I can take an hour walk. Do things that bore you, because as your mind slows down and as you get more in tune to who you are and what your purpose is and live a purposeful life, you'll allow for deeper thoughts to come out. And that the boring is the stopping of deeper thoughts. It means that you're overstimulated and that need for constant stimulation and stuff. So I noticed that. That's why at the beginning of Zen Buddhism, the master Lao Tzu, who came from the West, why did the master come from the West? Is the ancient question in Zen Buddhism. And it's a koan, or not a koan, but like it's one of these questions that doesn't really have an answer. Just illuminate your mind. But supposedly he went to the Shaolin fucking monks in the whatever the fuck. I get all the details wrong. He went up to the mountains to the fucking hippie ass people, the hippie people, and he was like, yo, I want to fucking teach you some shit. I think I got some shit. And they're like, get the fuck out of here, dude. We don't know who you are. Second time he was rejected. First he went to the leader of China, the emperor. He was like, I think I'm a cool dude. You should probably fucking hire me to fucking be smart around you. And the emperor was like, well, what can you teach me? And I think his answer was like, I don't know. And the emperor was like, what the fuck is this guy? And so he just left. But that's the telling people what they need to hear. There's another level of communication. We're not talking back and forth. That's why I'm learning and brokering during this time. Offering to pay people cabs and stuff like that. Or not even offering, I do it. But when they stop me, every one of those clients has not closed with me. So I'm just getting a tell, like poker. I'm doing stuff just to find out what's on your mind. And that's high level communication between human beings. And that's with women too. Fucking, if you're with a high level woman or you're trying to get a high level woman, she's checking you out in so many different ways. And the conversation is just surface, but there's other conversations going on above. And with another master, you're not even really talking anymore. That's why if you want to appear wise, move with transparent intention. But if you want to be wise, be still. The appearance of wisdom isn't a bad thing. If you want to appear wise, which not look like a threat, move with transparent intention. What I'm doing right now. Fucking transparent, radical honesty. Not about everything, but enough without hopefully fucking myself. Keep a little bit of shaz for me. But if you want to be wise, well, the masters are still. So that's what this guy was at. Wisdom is stillness, because wisdom is the ability to be with your own mind, but also to observe the world. And you're still because you're secure, because you already thought about all the moves. Now you're just expressing your natural state, which is a awareness and anticipatory. No, it's actually a blank, right? That's what it is. I'm not a fucking master. It's like what I'm learning, and the reason why I gravitate towards Zen Buddhism. Emptiness, which allows you to react, not anticipatory, not this or that. It is a possibility, empty possibility, that flow state. You allow just whatever's happening to happen through you, but you don't. The loosening up you have to do. I'm trying to loosen up my back. What is it? You allow for the opportunity to happen. Preparedness. So this master, he went to the emperor. The emperor was like, "Who the fuck are you?" He's like, "I don't know. You tell me." The emperor was like, "The fucking man with riddles. Get the fuck out of here." He's like, "Okay." Then he goes to the Shaolin. He's like, "Yo, I think I should be here." And they're like, "Who the fuck are you?" So he sits outside the gates, supposedly, and he waits for 8 years outside the gates until his gaze bores a hole in the rocks. He looks so fucking hard at their mountain temples until there's a hole in the rocks. They're like, all right, this guy is legit. Then they invite him in, and he trains them how to meditate, and he trains them how to do Kung Fu, the beginning of Kung Fu, which was to get your mind stronger or your body stronger so you can meditate longer and also help you with your concentration. Martial arts came from trying to strengthen your mind. That's what the right answers don't change. Physical, how I deal with my back and everything else. You work on your mind, everything else follows. We're Homo sapiens. We're not Homo fucking assholes. Homo assholes. We're not the strongest. When I tell people when we go in the ocean, you're the stupidest, slowest thing out there. Be humble. There's killers out there. We gotta be just slow and steady. And if there's time to leave the area, we leave the area calmly. We don't go out there and be dicks. You don't just touch shit. You respect everything out there. And there's the shit that scares you, whatever, turn around, walk away. Don't thrash, don't freak out. Everything out there, they got senses that we don't. They could hear your heartbeat. If you get nervous, they're worse than dogs. You get nervous in front of a dog who's trying to fuck with you, you're showing weakness. That dog's gonna maybe lunge. You gotta calm down and be like, I'm a human fucking being. I'll kick you in the face. I'm not gonna do that in the ocean. In the ocean, you turn around. I would tell people, turn around and slowly swim back to shore. We never ran into any sharks out there, and just fucking barracudas. I hate the fucking barracudas. They got teeth like that. Fucking. Just looking at you, a big old eye. As a barracuda, you're snorkeling. You turn over, and there's a fucking 6-foot barracuda right there. Just looking at you. It's like, fucking dude, they're just free. Maybe it's because they remind me of meth addicts. Fucking just big old huge eye just looking at you. Just like, and then you see one turn them like that. That's before they strike. They turn fucking downwards. And then I never saw one strike, but I saw one hanging out and I saw one turning downwards. I'm like, those fucking barracudas. I hear that they're nice. People say they hand feed them this and that. I don't like their spirit. Some animals I like their spirit, and some animals I just don't like their spirit. I'm not sure about cats. Cats I'm half and half. Fucking cats and I like dogs. I love dogs. Dogs are my homies. But cats and I sometimes don't get along. Sometimes cats challenge me, and then I challenge the cat back, and then the cat fucks me up. Petting a cat, and then the cat's like, I don't want to be pet. And I'm like, I'm a fucking human being. And then the cat's like, I'm a fucking cat, though. Cat will fuck you up. Rescue cats, too. Because cats have that spirit, that indomitable spirit. They just won't know their role. And then if you try to fucking enforce your role, like, you're a fucking cat. Be chill. They're like, nah. A cat, if it doesn't want to be chill, will not be chill. They're little tigers. They're apex predators. Doesn't matter how big you are, a cat will fucking, an angry cat. That's why they'll take on dogs and shit. Cats know that they're killers. I'm thinking specifically, I was in LA recently at this girl's house. She's a casting, she has her own casting agency, and this is how I came out to my parents' houses. Filet mignon, she flew me out. I ran into her again. And then fucking, they had some rescues. And this one rescue, we were cool. I'd be sitting on the couch, come up, it'd sleep right next to me. It was fucking like my energy. But sometimes I'd be petting it, and it would fucking try to like do some nasty, like bite me, shit like that. And I wasn't being like rude. I was just petting it. But sometimes some cats, especially rescues, they're like, I'm done with the fucking love. And then I would like put my hand in a certain way around its head. I was like, you're not gonna fucking bite me. You're a fucking cat. I'm being loving on you. Don't fucking turn on me. And sometimes I could hold it, and it's like fucking like The Exorcist trying to fucking get me, but I'm like holding it back on the neck, and I'm like, you're gonna fucking take this love. I'm gonna fucking pet the fucking devil out of you. But like if I missed if I fucking let the head go or if it somehow got its hands back. Oh, I was done. I had when I first came here, I showed my folks, it fucking got me bad on the wrist. When it fucking, because it like, I would calm it. Sometimes I would win and I would calm it down. I'd be like, you're fucking gonna calm down. You're not in the fucking streets anymore. Oh, they rescued it from fucking Mexico. It wasn't even a U.S. cat. So this is a cat who survived the fucking streets of Tijuana. So they were in Mexico and they saw this cat and they rescued it and brought it back home. So this was like a gangster cat. Like this cat fucking survived what most cats probably can't survive. I don't know if it's that bad, but this cat had seen some shit. So you'd be petting it and it would have a flashback and it would just turn on you. So like, he tried to do that with me and then just with dogs too, you know how to fucking like kind of like hold their body. So I just kind of like would just block all of its moves, like wrestling with my fingers. Just block its head, block its arms. She's like, you're not gonna fuck, and then just keep petting it. It's like, calm down, dude, calm down. And sometimes they'll like chill out. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you're just let it go. But if I didn't catch it right, he'd be like, I told you, motherfucker. I'm done being pet right now. He's a fucking mean ass cat. And then he come next time, I'm sitting on the couch and fucking lay next to me. I'm like, I'm done with your passive aggressive bullshit, cat. You're just trying to fucking trick me. That's funny. Animals. What else? And in the wild, and those are somewhat domesticated animals. In the wild is a whole nother thing. Riding horses in Vieques. This dude trying to show me how to ride a horse. A horse is not listening to me. I'm like, this horse don't respect me. He could just tell I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm like, yo, fucking horse, you're making me look bad. Come on. Turn around. And walks me down the street. Can't get him to turn around. Now I'm fucking 100 feet away from my buddy. My buddy's just laughing. I'm just like, fuck, I'm doing all this shit you're supposed to do to turn him around. He's like, nah, just making me look stupid. Horses have a fucking personality. If they notice you're not in control, you're done. They're gonna do whatever the fuck they want. But the people on the farm during Occupy Wall Street, they were all about horses. They rescued horses that were going to be put down or some shit. So they had like 12 horses by the time we got up there. That's all we would do. We'd go and play with the horses. And everyone would ride the horses and shit. We didn't do, what were we doing? Trying to do revolution. Trying to save their farm. Trying to avoid responsibility. My parents are getting evicted. What the fuck are we thinking? I'm just going to lay all this shit out in a narrative, like in a timeline, and then figure it out once I actually could see the whole thing. But it's a lot of... Anyways, I'm at 172 Thompson. I've talked about the business. I've gotten these emotions out. It's good. Put my mind in that state. With the SIMBA system, sales, inventory, branding, marketing, analytics. Something like that. That was the SIBNA system. So I had my full service girls. That was my inventory. That's how I got into that brokering idea about the different fucking markets. So I had all my full service. I had like 50, dozens of them at the time. The very first motherfucking girl, because she was the most recent. Well, I put them all out. Wait, let me think. No, it wasn't even alphabetical. It wasn't that, like, because that would be funny if she was like an A name. But no, she was the most recent, so I was going most recent backwards. But I had a lot of cute girls I'd met over that last year and a half. And I had that fucking room, and I had a water bed. Because I needed a bed that fit that tiny-ass room. And this girl had this super single bed. It's called the super single. Between a single and a full bed. It's like this medium fucking size. But it's a water bed. And Shaz the authoritarian, the anti-authoritarian, the fucking Shaz who likes to buck authority. Almost every lease signing has a rider or a part of the lease that says you can't have a water bed because landlords hate water damage. Like, that's a big thing, especially in New York. It's all these fucking apartments and shit. Everyone has a water bed. Like, I don't think they'll fall through the floor. I Googled that shit. I was like, I don't want to fucking cause trouble. But, like, I was willing to risk, like, it popping. But that's why the landlords say do not have a water bed because that fucking, it's like a pipe burst. Actually, a pipe burst in our bathroom in this apartment. And it was a good landlord. I was smart enough to put us in a decent landlord. So they had a huge team of people. The super was awesome there. He pointed out, he was like, look across the hall. You see how that's an Italian name on that door? That name's been there since the building since it was like the old days. Like, that's a mob name. He would point out, like, on the doors, he was like, these are families. Like, that used to be all the village, used to be all Italian families. And that was just, everyone was affiliated. It was like, so he was like, look up that name. That's a historic name right there on the door across from your door. There's some cool shit. You get little shit like that from the people who've lived there forever. He was a cool dude. He still sees me. What's his name? Forgot his name. Maybe Cola. I'd see him on the street and shit. He'd be like, "What's up?" Just stuff like that. That's cool. That makes you feel good. Just when people remember you, when you're walking through the village and you see this super, that super. That's why they call it a village. You live there a couple years and you just fucking get my coffee in the morning, walk around, say hi to people, smoke my joint in Washington Square Park. You start to feel like, that's what I would tell my clients too. I'm like, this city could get really small and it could get very cozy, like in a good way, if you just invest yourself in it and get your like fucking get your routines, get your people, I got like my 5 or 6 coffee shops I'll go to, my wine bar on Sunday. Fucking stuck up ass kids who work over there try to give me shit. Anyways, I might issue sometimes over there, but I ain't go there to fucking talk to people. I went there to fucking invest my time in the place, because the kids are gonna come and go who are working there. But like, you go to a place. I have this this restaurant I would go to a bunch ever since I did real estate. Before I did real estate, when I would live there, fucking when I saw Shaw. So certain places in New York you just go to and they become your spot. And hopefully, if you picked a good place, it's got decent food, decent ambiance, it's just your spot. Hopefully in 20, 30 years it's still there. You're still going there. Still going to your table in the back, your corner, your routine. With a big city like New York, you need that. You need your routines and you need your corners and your places that you, things that make it manageable. I would go to the Jane Hotel towards the end of my stay at 13 Carmine. Fucking, they have a pretty good breakfast. Eggs Benedict. The Titanic, the survivors of the Titanic were put up at the Jane when they came to New York. Right after that disaster, they came to New York. They were over at the Jane, and they have this little dedication to the survivors of the Titanic. I think it's called the Rose Cafe. They have a restaurant there. Pretty good breakfast. I hear it's a shitty hotel, though. I never stayed there. I think RuPaul lived there for a little bit. All of these buildings, the culture of New York is the culture of America. The Chelsea Hotel in Chelsea. I remember you well in the Chelsea Hotel. Leonard Cohen, rock and roll, coming from folk music, coming from McDougal Street. Everything. There's so many stories in New York. That's what I'm trying to do in my life. That's why I love New York, the stories. Talking about it makes me miss it. So I was like, I'm gonna fucking get a chick. A good one. Like I want to date someone. I go on this list. This girl, she's from LA, which is a good sign for me. And she wants to move out here. And she's in her fucking, she wants to move out here with a cousin. She's gonna go to NYU. So this is a shitty lead. I told her after we started dating, I was like, I've learned not to pick up clients like you. You know that you were a shitty client, right? I try to scare her away. So some clients, when they're too fucking general or specific or something, not specific, but when they're too general or when they didn't have a sense of urgency. She's not even in fucking New York. Why am I even shopping her? Wait until she gets here. You learn to do that too. Little qualifiers. It's like, you're not here to give me money. You're going to just get my time and energy. And then when you come here, someone else is going to distract you. And the last person to distract you is the one you're going to give them business to. So I'm just going to wait until you're here. And then I'm going to put my effort in when it's most likely. I'm not going to get your business while you're not here. And I don't got the time to fucking window shop with you. As once you start getting good at your job, you start to realize why people who are good at their job have short fuses. You don't got to be a dick about it, but over and over again, as I get clients who are also successful, I realize that success demands efficiency and expediency. Once you start wasting people's time, you edit yourself out of the interaction. It's not that they have short patience. It's just that people sum you up quick. It's that first impressions thing. I don't want to put it in a way that's a cliche that's useless. When people say your first impressions this or that, that's not it. Because people hype up first impressions like you're going to bullshit someone. It's not about bullshit. It's about quickly establishing who you are. And if you're not who that person needs for that service, you shouldn't have pitched it to begin with. That's what the basis of my business wisdom was, becoming, be a professional, be the professional that gets the business through the best service. Don't bullshit. So I'm not trying to talk my way into situations that I can't handle. I'm trying to figure out the people who are my types of clients so that I can close more of them with less bullshit. And that's also how I'm keeping sane. because I'm not fighting with all my clients. That's why like my coworkers are like, Shaz, your clients are so nice when I bring them into the office. Yeah, because this isn't a struggle. I found the person who needed me, and now I'm delivering. And so by the time we meet up and we're looking at apartments, we're just hanging out. We already like each other's company. I'm asking them about their business. I'm like, oh, you're a purchaser for like a global furniture company? That's fucking awesome. Going to China, this and that. But it's not bullshit. These brokers, these guys are taking a fake interest in people. I'm actually taking an interest in people. I might want to fucking be taking them out on a date later on or something. Or like, I might want to rent their apartment later on or I might just like them. Like people are cool. And I would tell them, I was like, I'm lucky I got into real estate. Tell them a little bit about me. I'd be like, I like people and I like apartments. I look around at all these buildings. I'd be like, I've seen most of these apartments. I've been in a lot. There's so many buildings and apartments in New York City. You can't go in them all, but I've been in more apartments than I could be in 1,000 lifetimes. I've been in thousands of apartments. It's fucking awesome. It's like, you get to see how people live. That's what the real estate person gets to see. It's like anthropology of human abodes. And that's just New York. So like fucking when I go traveling, I've always liked architecture. I come here to my parents' house, I'm like, you guys have some nice hardwood floors in here. It's a silly little house, tiny little house for $1,000, but for what it is, it's cute. My real estate mind can't turn off. It's like, you guys have some nice light. You have southeastern facing windows. That's what this light right here, this is from the south. Just these little things. That's like intuitive. We're broke, but we're classy. We're keeping it classy. My folks have good taste. I like that. Keep a clean house. These flowers, I get my mom these flowers. I'm making money again. Or I'm making money now in real estate for the first time. So on my mom's birthday, on their anniversaries, I'm sending them some money. I'm not paying for the car yet. It took me a couple years to actually start picking up their bills, but I'm able to buy shit. I'm able to visit them. Take them to Puerto Rico was the first thing that I did for them. Get the family together. Show them a girlfriend. Other than Shah, like, show them, like, yeah, my mom, they're always pushing for the fucking grandkids. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to marry this girl, but at least you know that fucking, I'm out there. I'm not being, I don't know. So this girl, she was an NYU girl, and she's not in this town yet, but like, she's cute. So like, this is my judgment. It's like, all right, my business is slow enough or whatever. It probably wasn't. I'm probably giving up money here. But I'm like, I go out to apartments and I FaceTime her. She's in LA and I'm walking her through the apartments. And she's in her pajamas in LA. And I'm fucking walking her through. And like, she's just sweet. We got a whole like, she's fucking dorky. And I'm like, are you still in pajamas? It's like fucking 1 o'clock in the afternoon over there. And she's like, I know, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm just teasing her. So she's like, all right, that one looks good. But I'm being really nice. And then I'm sending her like 100 apartments. Basically like, don't bother me anymore. So I sent her like, because I usually send 30 to 50 max, but I'm learning, that's a part of my sales process, is I'm learning how much is too much. When I send people 100 more apartments and not many people get back to me, when I'm reviewing my business for the month, I'm like, all right, I look at all of the fucking interactions. That's what being like the manager, and I have to put on my CEO hat, and I have to look at worker Shaz, or worker Dave at the time. And I have to be like, all right, what do we do with these? We have to do postmortems on everything. And I'm like, all right, so maybe, and then you adjust, and then you try it. Some of my adjustments don't work, and I'm like, all right, that was a fucking bad idea. Sometimes I'm like, all right, what's one? Sometimes you make a judgment call, and you're like, all right, I lost a lot of business doing that, and then you go back to the other. But usually you're iterating towards more efficiency. So when I sent her a fucking 100 apartments, I was pretty much in my mind being like, if she gets through all of these, then maybe she's worth it. But otherwise, fucking, let's just give her. I liked her. I was like, all right, she was cute. I was like, let's give her something to chew on. She's a teething puppy. She could go through all these fucking apartments, and by the time she gets to the city, that's the time in my mind. And I'm doing these shares. I'm doing the fucking the shares still that summer. It's still my X factor. I'm just trying to walk away from it completely. My other thing isn't the rentals with studios and 1-bedrooms isn't catching up enough. So the shares every now and then giving me extra money. So I'm doing them in Soho, and I'm trying to do this 3-bedroom. So I'm interviewing a lot of people. And who comes to the door? I'm doing like an open house. So fucking just running people through to try to get my numbers to find my 3 people. And I eventually did that one and got $4,500 off of it. But this girl, and when I opened the door, I recognized her from the FaceTime. She's like, oh my gosh, And she was with a guy seeing the apartment, and I don't know if she liked the guy, but she was single, and the guy, I think, was crushing on her. And the guy was looking at the apartment. And then me and her, like, as soon as I opened the door, like, we recognized each other from the FaceTime. She was like, you're my broker. That was the beginning.